these are all the things that Bawumia mentioned and more. And it is only fair that Senna today, when Bawumia is talking, he addresses these issues. Because these are the issues that he came by. It was these issues by which he was voted for. He and his Nana Akufo-Addo were voted into power for. So it is only normal that he has to address these issues. Put them down. Let us understand the development you made so far with them. Because these were the issues that you thought were so important in an economy and were declining, or should I say degrading, and making the lives of Ghanaians worse by the day. He's swerving them. Today, what does he have to talk about? How easy it is to purchase electricity units. He's talking about the declining agriculture inputs. That is what Dr. Bawumia has to say for all these important factors that Ghanaians are crying about. He hasn't mentioned sanitation. He hasn't mentioned the issue with Dumsor, even though he mentioned Dumsor in almost every single speech he made during 2016-2015. He hasn't mentioned it now. People that are still suffering with water issues, the number of schools that are still under trees. He hasn't mentioned any of them. He has decided to go and mention how easy it is for somebody to purchase units. Let me make this example. Let me refer to this issue. When we had a lot of issues that Ghanaians were facing in 2015 and 2016, or should I say when they were mentioning the many issues that Ghanaians said they had with the current government. And then NPP comes to power, and then they implement free SHS and made so much noise about it. That was a good move for them. I mean, that was a good move. Made so much noise about it. And for about 3 years into free SHS, not even a single Ghanaian can complain about anything, because free SHS is here and it has solved every problem all of a sudden. Because free SHS is here, Ghanaians are not supposed to complain about anything because everything has been solved. As though me, I have a child in free SHS. As though Felix here has a child in SHS. As though Uncle Kwesi here has a child in SHS. So you wonder how that is supposed to solve the normal problems that we are facing as a country. Because the fraction of people who have their children in SHS is just like over there, probably less than a quarter. So how does that become like the total? And that is what this man has been doing from the very onset. And it's so degrading, it's so embarrassing that he even has the audacity to come and tell us that they are fixing things and directs it to these. I don't know even how to put them, but it looks like an insult, or let me just say it is. We just have about 10 things, 10 major things. Concentrate on them. Stop beating about the bush. Stop lying to us. It's like the lies never end. A whole vice president of the Republic of Ghana is now known to be called Baulaya, because there is nothing, there is no truth in every single thing that Bawumia has said. And if you don't, I mean, we are all very, we come from traditional background or cultural backgrounds, and you know that it is not only verbal insults that are insults in our culture. When somebody consistently disrespects you, consistently lies to you, the person is disrespecting you. The person is lying to you consistently, making a fool out of you, is disrespecting you. That is what Bawumia, Akufo-Addo, and the NPP have been doing to Ghanaians from the very onset that they entered power. Lying consistently. We address your lies and you come and lie again. We address them and you come and lie again every instant. So it's like, are Ghanaians not even educated? Do we not even know the way forward? This man thinks that we are in some stone age, where because he's a politician, he wears a suit, comes to stand in front of us, and then spew lies, and then nags his English at us, and thinks that we just believe everything a politician says, because at the end of the day, you get a few people in the crowd that will clap for him. We heard him saying that he had arrested the CD and given the key to the IGP. Look, it's disheartening. Sometimes it sounds funny when people are, saying it. But it's disheartening because the rate at which he brags and sugarcoat his lies that have been sugarcoated too, you wonder, what is it that he has, or what is it that he's holding on to? So if this isn't utter respect, I don't know what it is. I think we have to get to a stage where if this fix the country hashtag is going to continue for some time, we have to ban Bawumia from talking and to addressing any important issue in government. Because time and again, as a vice president, he comes and then he lies. He comes and then he disrespects us with his many lies. Now, I just want to touch a little bit on what my boss Felix said about this Wesley girls issue. It's an open secret that Bawumia wants to run for presidential candidate in the national what was it? The New Patriotic Party. I don't know who advised him to do that though, because with the issues that we are addressing right now, he doesn't even seem to be fit to even try to go to the road through to presidency. But I'll just say this, underlining that the way this matter is so clear, it would have just been an opportunity for a very staunch Muslim, a so-called staunch Muslim. I believe that he's a staunch Muslim, but now I'm forced to target with so-called staunch Muslim to have just addressed the issue, realize the tone of the Presby, the heads of the Presbyterian, is it the Methodist? Sorry, the Methodist Council. Realize the tone in their response, and just also assess this problem, realizing that these students aren't going to be asking for anything special. It's just recognizing that they are fasting and probably shouldn't be forced to the dining hall at the time they are fasting, and their food kept pushed to the time that they are supposed to break their fast. And that is it. Problem solved. I have a lot of friends who went to Wesley Girls High School, and they tell me that the nature of their routine, daily routine, is in such a way that it even allows you, who is a Muslim, to pray at all the intervals that you are supposed to pray without piling them up to pray in the evening. That is to say that if you are supposed to pray at 1 p.m., by 1 p.m., they have their siesta, they have a short break, they leave class, come back to their dormitory, prepare for about some 30 to 1 hour, and then go back. When it's about 3 p.m., they have that interval again that you can come. When it's 6, there is that interval. And when it's at dawn, you know when you are supposed to pray. So they already have those intervals at their, like, it's part of the school structure. So implementing this is not difficult for them at all. All we need to do is to just be reasonable. Look, ever since we have been kids, we have grown up looking at people commending Ghana to be one of the most peaceful countries in Africa. Enjoying peace, we interrelate with each other. Look at how a lot of Christians show love towards Muslims. Look at how the chief imam relates to other Christian bishops and Christian pastors. It is just beautiful. So we've enjoyed that peace for so long, and now there are a few discriminations that are trying to threaten it in some way. You see, I don't take some of these things lightly at all, because every sort of conflict that starts in every institution or country in the world, you go to the root of it, and it started as little as this. It is when you underestimate or undermine it that it escalates. This is just reasonable. Apart from the Methodist Church of Ghana, who came out with that release, I do not know of any Christian who would go all out against the fact that these children should be allowed to fast. So what would it have taken Bawumia to come out and say something? Even if not force, say something that will make the Methodist Church of Ghana reflect, or that will push the GES to also do something about what they are doing. But unfortunately, we have left it to just disappear. And this is a man who wants to become president one day. This is a man who is trying to vie for flag bearership of his party. Somebody who cannot even stand in to make this small request, not even a request, to just input this thing in for his own religion. He can't stand for his. Can he stand for mine? Can he stand for ours? Who is he at all? Just because it doesn't suit you politically. Look, a leader, now that we've realized that leaders are supposed to be able to stand on their foot and take certain difficult decisions on behalf of the country, sometimes ignoring the backlash that will come after. Because it needs to be done. It has to be done. For us to benefit in future, you have to take hard decisions for us and ignore the criticisms. But this man couldn't do a single thing. So I'm just relating it to Ghanaians. So look, in Tree, they said, yes, or walk it to a he who has, I mean, I don't even want to go into, because I'll take a long time to do the direct translation. But that is in Tree. That means that you see someone's beginning now and see what he's offering. Then you can project what he can offer in future when he's given the bigger mandate. So if as a vice president of the Republic of Ghana, with so much influence and authority, you were not able to intervene in this issue and have remained silent on all relevant issues and decided to bring out 70 whatever to come and I don't know what he was even trying to do by then I will just tell the MPP themselves to consider him, looking at what he's doing and how he's handling such issues, to project and realize that this man has absolutely nothing to offer Ghanaians and even the MPP as a party. And that all that he would come and do is to completely probably refurbish his lies and find new ways of lying. And aside lie, I don't see anything that he can do better. So that is my conclusion, Senna. I think Bawumia is a failure. He is the scum of the century. Because I even hardly foresee anybody lying more than he lies. That is why I have even pushed him to a century. He is a mistake that Ghanaians shouldn't make again. In future, when we are looking at our leaders, we should look at some of his traits. Somebody who comes and brags about the whole universe, promises the whole universe, including his boss, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo. Brags, lies, promises almost everything. It was just left for them to promise one wachi, one willy. They promised everything. And then here we are with nothing at hand, crying, complaining every day to tell them to fix the country. They are telling us to fix ourselves. And then eventually intolerant, absolutely intolerant to criticisms. And that is what we have been reduced to. Senna, I think we shouldn't make a mistake again. We shouldn't make such a mistake again. And I'm very sure that whoever voted for the MPP, thought about voting for the MPP, a lot of people that thought about voting for the MPP in 2020 election have regret. In fact, I'm sure they regretted just about a month after. But all is not lost. We still have a lot of young and discerning politicians that actually have the country at heart, most importantly. And in due course, we'll eliminate all these old roots that are rotting the country down. Thank you.
I thought you were just going to announce your presidential ambition. Anyway. that would be fantastic. Well, a couple of your messages, and this one is from Williams in Tema, who says, I'm enjoying the program. Felice is doing great. Please, I want you to inform us about 2021 minimum wage and salary increment, since the new taxes take effect this month. My understanding is that is still on the table. In the meantime, you continue to pay the taxes while that is being negotiated in the public sector. Okay, this is, it doesn't come with a name. It says 12 p.m. a Muslim girl can take her 5 minutes prayer before siesta, same as 3 p.m. She can even combine both at either of the 2 times. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I think backing up what I was just saying. This one is from, is it AK Oracle? Senior aircraftsman. Okay, let me read the message, because the name seems long. It says, I'm very impressed with the lady on the program. She highlighted the fact that Bawumia is not fit to get himself out of a wet paper bag, let alone lead the beautiful country such as Ghana out of the mess we are taking the country into. Thank you very much for sending this. Just that the name is quite long. Malamin, okay, I think Malamin Ablekuma was the one who sent that message. Some of your messages that you're sending to us. I'm trying to read from our WhatsApp platform. The message keep coming in very fast. This one says, I do enjoy your program all the time, but there's one important thing that you don't tackle. That's the printing of textbooks and teacher's guide for teachers and learners. God bless my sister. She has it all. Baumia is like a driver driving with TV license. Charles Nyamina Samake says, John Mahama came to meet problems as president. He was honest about it. He took responsibility without blaming previous government and the Ghanaian people for it. He rather assured the country of fixing it. And true to his words, he fixed it with others in progress. This is what we call leadership and not what we are seeing today. Thank you, Charles, from Asamakese, for sending that message. This one says, I feel very bad to talking about this Wesley girls issue, but he who seeks for equity must come with clean hands. Muslim schools are also doing same things to Christians. We say they compel female students to put on hijab. Religious bodies should not separate us, but we have cohabitated for far too long. Okay, let me read the last one, then I'll go to Dr. Percy. This one says, the failure of Akufo-Addo government is all over in all areas. The Free SHS program has been a means for NPP party people to loot our scarce and limited resources. In 2017, for example, suppliers of food to the suppliers of food to the secondary schools were quoting prices of foodstuff far higher than the open market price. A bag of maize was supplied to a school at 370 cedis. When on Techima market, it cost 150 cedis. A crate of eggs was supplied at 47 cedis. When on the market, it ranged between 10 cedis to 15 cedis. The inflated prices were all over, and all these monies are being counted as part of the cost of running the Free SHS program, when in fact, money is going to party people. Ghana is collapsing under Akufo-Addo. Thank you very much for those messages. Keep them coming in. Well, the next time I come back, it will be much more stable and I can read more. But thank you. Thank you. Let me go to Dr. Percy next. Doc.
So now what is the real topic?
The topic is about Dr. Baumia's response to the
Dr. Baumia?
Yeah.
And Dr. Baumia is not president. My understanding is that this business about fixing the country is directed at the president. He was elected. He has our mandate. Or he has stolen our mandate. Let's put it that way. And well, we could go into the history of how this thing has arisen. I'm not sure whether our president is in the jurisdiction. Has he traveled?
Yes, he's traveled.
Yeah. He just sums up the attitude of our president. And something that the MPP has worked carefully at constructing, which I don't intend to get trapped by. I don't know how long this campaign has been going on. At least it's a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
Our president has not elected to speak to it. He does not recognize it. On the contrary, he has decided to take a relatively long leave of absence. I think he's going to be away for how many days?
About 3 to 4 days.
No.
Yeah.
Precisely. Precisely. So you're well into, a couple of weeks into a campaign that raises fundamental issues about his legitimacy, about the legitimacy of his regime, about the problems, the concerns, the hopelessness of many young people. The most potent force in any country feel about our present and our future. He has not found it fit to respond. Instead, you have a host of minions and agents who are coming out with responses that have very little to do with the concerns that are being expressed. I don't think that half of them even understand what is driving the campaign. Yet, they are making responses on behalf of the regime. But none of them was elected by the Ghanaian people. Well, okay, apart from the MP, we say, and Baumia as part of the ticket. The finance minister was not elected by us. The president, who has the people's mandate, has chosen not to even address it. Has instead taken off for a long leave of absence. But that is, if one could say so, just one of the symptoms of the deep problems that we have. Now, if I understand it, people are expressing concerns about many things. But if you were going to sum it up, you say that it's symptomatic of our politics and our governance, which are dysfunctional and not addressing the concerns of our people. At the heart of it, from where I sit, are matters that are constitutional. You have an overbearing executive, very powerful. You have a rubber stamp parliament. You have an unelected judiciary that is not accountable. Now, if you were tasked to design an architecture of government to guarantee failure, if you were tasked, if anybody was given the task of coming up with a structure of government to guarantee failure, it will be difficult to beat this arrangement that we have imposed on ourselves. And that is at the heart of the crisis that we face. It's reflected in some other parts and other aspects of our current situation, including the so-called culture of silence and the impunity that drives many of the current issues. Now, I refuse to focus on Dr. Baumia because we did not elect him president. He has come out with what you call the standard MPP playbook when issues are raised. Is to trot out a list of what you might call sometimes irrelevant, sometimes insignificant so-called achievements as a response, but which in no way address the core issues at stake. It means that there's a fundamental lack of understanding about what the concerns of people are Okay? Now, of course, there are day-to-day frustrations that people have. There's no water. Your power goes on and off. You have bad roads. But all of those are symptomatic of a politics and a government that is in acute crisis. We have public officials, elected officials, ministers who don't use any of the public services. They don't use our schools. They don't use our hospitals. They don't use public transport. Their lives are completely disconnected from the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian. So you're delivering to me an education system that you say is going to deliver quality. Okay, well, the president is a grandfather, so I don't expect that he has kids who are going to go to school. We certainly will have grandchildren. There are ministers who have kids. Their kids are not in our public schools. They don't use public transport. And for the most part, they don't use our hospitals. But that in a sense reflects the state of crisis that we have. Now, if you get to a situation where public officials who use our school. I remember I went to a lowly primary school in Osuhom School. At the time, you had ministers who were in Nkrumah's cabinet. This was a public school. Today they'll call it Saito, right? You had at least two persons who were high-ranking in Nkrumah's government, who were their children in the school, ordinary primary school. Today, it will not happen. They use public transport like everybody else. It will not happen today. And every day on the news, you come across issues that reflect this breakdown. For instance, just yesterday, I think on the news, there was a report about the surgeons at Complicity complaining about basic items that would make it possible for them to do their work. Okay? Which have been crying out for attention. You could go on and on and on. Not just Complicity, Kolebu, repeated across the length and breadth of our country. Find out simple items of equipment that will make it possible for people to realize their mission, so they will reduce the number of needless deaths and suffering by people who have been trained, who know what to do, are missing. And if you do a calculus, maybe all it will do to resolve that particular problem is maybe 1 or 2 D8s. Right? The kind that is available to all ministers, all the way down to middle ranking public officials. But these things are not being addressed. They are not being fixed. And the person who has responsibility for that is the president. So in that context, I see the vice president and everybody else as mere props for the president. Now, one other reason, or maybe for me, maybe a principal reason, is that I refuse to accept our president as a fetish, which is what the MPP has constructed for themselves, and which many Ghanaians have now come to impose on themselves. So our president, the fetish, does no wrong. Indeed, he has no responsibility. If there are problems, but they went through the past 4 years, blaming every problem on former President Mahama. But they have started their stolen second term with the same refrain. If there's a problem, you blame President Mahama. The next, you blame the Ghanaian people for not demanding solutions to that problem when President Mahama was president. They have no responsibility. Our president has merely taken over a family possession that has long been denied to him. In a sense, it took having to lie. And I was struck by the point that Jifa made about me lying. Nobody lies more than the president. So the president has to lie to con his way to take back family property. Those who have benefited from that property whilst it was out of his control, they can count themselves lucky. But from here on, they should not look to him for the solution of their problems, because that's not why he came. And I thought this thing was made amply clear from the very beginning of the first step. Our problems are not the responsibility of the president. He did not come because of us. He just came to take back what had been denied him, what belonged to his family, period. Otherwise, how else can we explain this standard response? Now look, if there are problems, there are problems that were created by the past regime. In fact, you should have asked for answers in their term. Don't worry us, because we are not here because of you. Now, it was necessary, given the context, to promise the Ghanaians heaven in order to win power for the first term. Having failed, it required some additional measures, including the murder of voters, and to steal a second term. It required bribing, offering free water, free electricity. And the good people of this country must now pay for these things. The bribery, the borrowing, all the expenses that were needed to get a second term are going to be paid for through austerity, taxes, levies, and the deterioration in public services, bad as they are now. And we can expect more of the same, not any lessening. I expect more of the same, of this austerity, not any lessening. But again, the MPP has trotted out what has worked for it, it believes time and again, which is this. They believe that there's no problem that cannot be solved without a few choice slogans and spin, managing the news, including ensuring that people engage in self-censorship and do not address the things that are of concern. And it has served them in the past, and they believe that it will serve them well in the present. If they appear to take us for fools, that is precisely what it is. Because they have found out from experience the Ghanaian people are not intelligent, that they can say anything to us, and with the proper management of the news, they can get away with it. It has worked in the first term. I don't see them changing it in the second term. That's what I'll say for now.
Thank you very much, Doc. A couple of more of your messages before I go to Mr. Pratt's version. Albert Aheto is saying, please, I disagree with Dr. Percy on the issue of Nanado is the one elected, and he must answer or speak to fix the country debate. Baumia is paid with taxpayers' money and is equally accountable to we the taxpayers. Simply put, Baumia is who is the head of the economic management team as the 419. Send that from Domi Kwabenya constituency. Okay, a few more of your messages before I move on. Alhaji Hadi in Pig Farm says the direction from the Methodist Church is backward. The days of religious intolerance and flagrant abuse of the right of Muslim students are long gone. We live in a constitutional democracy, and the fundamental right of every citizen must be respected. This culture of religious intolerance is exhibiting its ugly persona in our society because persons at higher authority are supporting it. The test of democracy is how the state treats the right of minority and accommodates unpopular opinion. For a public institution funded with taxpayers' money to brazenly advocate for religious apartheid in open defiance of the law and order signifies a threat to our young democracy. Allah save Mother Ghana. Thank you, Alhaji Hadi, for that message. Alhaji Hamza in Pig Farm also says, Sana, it is sad to hear Canada, Japan, all the places insulting Ghanaians for complaining about the hardships in the country. I don't blame him, but I'm happy the finance minister has made useless of his talks and that of Baumia's response. The finance minister has responded to the movement of Fix the Country group. Sana, what at all is happening in this country? Is Canada, Japan above the laws of this land or what? Just a few days ago, okay, he said on Kingdom, categorically, said the Ghana police knew the killers of Ahmed Suale and even went ahead to dare the Ghana police to come and tell Ghanaians within 2 weeks or else they'll speak out. Thank you for that message. A few more of those messages. Mistaken in Sam Adwajiri says a good morning and says a good morning to Phyllis too. So Dr. Baumia is a non-talkative, a theoretical, and a textbook economist. So he has lost credibility. The human rights abuse under Nanado Baumia-led government is unprecedented in 4 republics. The suspension of Captain Smart and the attacks on the City FM TV journalists is a confirmation of culture of silence. Nanado has failed Ghanaians woefully. Price of goods and services are skyrocketing. Ghana is bleeding profusely and things are falling apart. Hashtag fix the country. Let me end with Wolanyo Nakwetia, who says journalists beating is simply defined as an awful and punishment must be served to the culprits. But one mustn't forget that we are dealing with the nation's security, and so journalists must do their job fearlessly. But one should know the limits and boundaries with permission granted. No freedom is carte blanche. No right is untrammeled. Thank you very much for those messages. I guess I move to Mr. Pratt next.
Yeah. You know, over the last couple of days, if you like 2 weeks, a strong movement of young people has emerged. And this strong movement of young people is calling on the national authorities to fix the problems of the country. When they talk about fixing the problems of the country, they're talking about tackling poverty. They're talking about tackling excruciating hardship. Indeed, they are calling on the authorities to make life bearable for the people of this country. If you travel around this country, you'll be completely shocked by the level of deprivation everywhere, in the capital city, in the villages, in the hamlets, everywhere. The level of, it's just simply shocking. You know, today, we are living in a country in which some parents, working parents, are actually paid 200 cedis a month. And it is just simply impossible to survive on 200 cedis a month. For some of those people who make policy and implement policy, that is the kind of money they spend on one lunch. And yet, this is the kind of money that is paid to some people to live on with their families for a whole month. This is one of the problems that these young people are calling upon the authorities to fix. 2 days ago, I saw a video that was circulating on social media, and the source of the video was Kumasi. A young man turned on his tap, and the water that was coming out of the tap looked like coffee without milk. Pipe-borne water looking like black coffee. The quality of the water that our people consume is such a huge problem. And this is the problem that these young men and women are calling upon the leaders of our society to fix. Access to education has become a major problem in our country. In spite of all the noise about free SHS and so on, there are people, Ghanaians, living now in this country, in the era of free SHS, who have to walk 3 to 5 kilometers to school and 3 to 5 kilometers back home every day, every school day. As we talk about free SHS and so on, so forth, there are children who are unable to go to school simply because their school uniforms are torn and they cannot stand the ridicule they face in school. So they recoil and refuse to go to school and so on. Access to education is still a major problem for many families, for many students, for many peoples, and this is part of the problem that these young people are calling upon the authorities to fix. Today, young graduates of my universities, those who manage to get jobs, and only a very, very small percentage of those who graduate from our universities manage to get jobs. Today, they are called upon to pay 5 years rent advance. Some of them 3 years. The lucky ones 2 years or 1 year rent advance. They are just about to start employment. They don't have the money. So what they do is to borrow money and pay the rent advance for 5 years. And between now and the next 5 years, to make savings if they can, so that they can pay the next rent advance and so on. They are living, as we say, from hand to mouth because of the accommodation problems they face. And these young people in Accra, in Tema, and other places, they open their eyes and they see the Saglabi housing project, and they see that it has been abandoned. This is one of the problems they are calling upon our authorities to fix. They are calling upon our authorities to fix the general problem of transportation. And of course, if you're talking about transportation, you're talking about the high cost of transportation because of the incessant fuel price increases. If you're talking about the problem of transportation, you're talking about our bad roads. And the bad roads are everywhere. And in spite of the declaration of last year as the year of roads, the bad roads stare us in the face everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. You understand? And this is one of the problems that these young people are calling upon us to fix. The problems are everywhere. They face us everywhere. They're huge problems, they're small problems, and they're everywhere. Problems that make life difficult for all of our people. Now, I've taken the trouble to mention some of the problems that these young people want to be fixed, so that we'll be able to look at the response of government and the response of Dr. Bawumia and see whether indeed this response gives these young people any hope. And that's why I've taken the trouble to list some of these problems, to list only some of those problems. You understand? Now, in the face of this agitation and so on, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia comes up and then he says, this is my response. And what is the response? Felix has dealt with some of the responses and so on. And I'm saying that what is put out as a response to the demands of the young people is no response at all. There is no response at all. The young people are calling upon us to stop this incessant fuel price increases, which is having a ripple effect throughout the economy. And in Dr. Bawumia's response, there's no reference to petroleum price increases. There's no assurance about petroleum price increases and so on. Nothing whatsoever. In Dr. Bawumia's response, there's no assurance that the crippling, debilitating unemployment situation will be tackled. There's no assurance that the minimum wage, will be increased substantially to make it possible for the working people of this country to improve their working and living conditions. There's no such assurance. And what is put out as Dr. Bawumia's, answer, his response and so on, there's nothing in it which assures us that access to education will be improved, that the quality of education will be improved, There's nothing in it which assures us that water supply will be improved. There's nothing in it which assures us that the horrible roads we have to ply on will be improved. So how is that a response to fix the country movement? How is that a response to the demands that are being put forth by people who are rallying to the hashtag, which has drawn together more than 500,000 people? How is that a response? You know, I listened to the finance minister's response. And it's instructive. The finance minister's response came after Dr. Bawumia's response. Now, clearly, if Dr. Bawumia's response had answered the questions that had been raised, it would have become totally unnecessary for the finance minister to also come and respond to the same issues. That the finance minister came to respond to the same issues is an indication that government itself was fully convinced that Dr. Bawumia's response failed to convince anybody. You understand? Now, what did the finance minister say? The finance minister referred to roads and said, look, we need $10 billion to be able to fix the roads. The same finance minister had told us much earlier that if you take total national revenue plus grants and so on, about 91% of that is being spent on debt servicing, debt repayment, and public sector emoluments. So clearly what the finance minister is telling us that, yes, we've raised the problems of roads and so on, but we cannot fix it. That's simply what the finance minister is saying. The finance minister is looking into our face and telling us that, yes, we've raised all of these problems, and we simply don't have an answer. You understand? So how is that a response? One of the things which has been most significant in all these responses which are pouring out of government and officials and so on is simply this. I think Felix mentioned it. After the first 100 days in office in the first term of this government, Dr. Bawumia listed 101 achievements in the first 100 days. In the 5th year of the same administration, those achievements have now been reduced to 71. How come? Were the first achievements phantom achievements? How come that the achievements are reducing as the regime grows in years? Somebody must be explaining that to me. How come? Master, you know, I think it is important that all of us, those in government, those outside government, all of us as citizens of Ghana, begin to examine our national situation in the light of this growing movement of discontent. Because if we fail to do that, we will shock ourselves very, very soon. Because there's an avalanche that is coming. There's an avalanche of anger, of discontent, of disapproval that is growing and that is beginning to move. We need to look at that avalanche carefully. Playing the ostrich and holding press conferences and answering questions which nobody has put to us and so on is a very dangerous way of dealing with the avalanche. I have said publicly over the week that I've had the fortune of meeting some of the leaders of this movement. And I've said publicly that after meeting with those leaders and so on, I thought that the people I met did not appear here to have the experience and the expertise to harness public anger and discontent and move it in a certain direction. And it does seem to me that some people in authority are hanging on this lack of experience and expertise and convincing themselves that this movement is getting nowhere. But that would be a huge mistake to make. It would be a huge mistake to make because the people who started the hashtag, the young people who appear to be in leadership and so on, they are not the only people who are angry. They are not the only people who are seeking change. There are so many people who are angry and who are seeking change. There are so many people who are angry and wishing that our country can be better than what it is today. So if these young people who started the hashtag do not appear to have the expertise and so on, it should not provide us with comfort. It should not provide anybody with comfort. What is the problem is that the anger is growing. The anxiety is growing. The discontent is growing. And the movement is getting bigger and bigger. And the explosion may be inevitable. Today, government, through all kinds of machinations, including the manipulation of the police and so on, has succeeded in averting a public demonstration which should have happened about 6 days ago. But should that give anybody comfort? I don't think it should. And it shouldn't give anybody comfort because you have seen what has happened in the Arab countries. You have seen what is happening around the world and so on. And we should simply realize that it gets to a time when regulations and so on aimed at gagging the people simply do not work. In al-Bashir's Sudan, what happened? Al-Bashir's Sudan, what happened? The law that gagged the population collapsed. The shooting of demonstrators did not prevent what eventually happened in al-Bashir's Sudan. Eventually, the people spoke. And the people spoke loudly for change. It can happen in Togo, it can happen in Ghana, it can happen in La Côte d'Ivoire, and can happen everywhere. Let our leaders listen. And if our leaders should fail to listen, all of us may become victims of the legitimate anger of our people. All of us may become victims of the legitimate anxiety of our people who suffer poverty, who suffer all the ills of our society, and so on. And it's time for our people to listen. Now, Sana, yesterday morning, I was listening to radio, and I heard all kinds of persons yesterday morning pouring out into radio stations and so on, and jubilating over what they claim to be one of the best achievements of this administration. And yesterday, we were all being told that inflation has been reduced to a single digit, 8.5%, and so on. And I laughed. Inflation? What is inflation? Let us assume that the statistics provided by the Statistics Service is correct. Let us assume that it is correct. What does that mean to a young man who, after many years of struggle and so on, has decided to construct for himself a 2-bedroom house so that he would no longer pay rent, so that he and his family will have somewhere to live? The fact of the matter is that over the last 5 years, the price of cement has increased from 24 from 24 cities to almost 60 cities. So if you come and tell this young man that you've reduced inflation to 8.5%, what rubbish are you telling this young man? The fact of the matter is that the taxi driver, the trotro driver, since December last year, has experienced petroleum price increases 6 times. Is that a reduction in inflation? That reduction in inflation to 8.5%. What does that do for the taxi driver? What does that do for the trotro driver? Why? Most of us, around the country, I was going to say around Accra, but it's not true. I travel. I go to Tamale, and I see that a lot of people eat ga kenke. You go to Tamale, they eat ga kenke everywhere, and so on. Now listen, ga kenke used to sell at the highest price at 1 cedi per ball of kenke, only a couple of months ago. Today, you can buy ga kenke for 2 cedis a ball. And when you get ga kenke at 1 cedi 50 pesos, the size has reduced. And then you come and tell me that you have reduced the rate of inflation. And then the worst part is that we are being told that the rate of inflation has been reduced because we have produced too much food. That the planting for food and jobs has been so successful that the price of food has reduced. What about the price of kenke? Kenke! What about the price of kenke?
Planting.
And any consumer of kenke knows that the price of kenke has doubled over the last couple of months. So what kind of food? Which food has reduced its prices? Is it kenke? I eat kelewele a lot. I eat it a lot. Try buying kelewele today. Compare the kelewele that we used to buy in December to the size of the kelewele we buy today. Unless somebody come and tell me that food inflation has gone down. How do they compare these statistics? I don't know. I don't know how they compare these statistics. And we are all supposed to be jumping and dancing and singing praises because food inflation has gone down so drastically that overall inflation has come down to 8.5%. Let the statisticians deceive themselves. But let them know that the rest of the population cannot be deceived. There are real concrete problems confronting our people. And we must make genuine effort at resolving those problems. Now, Senna, the problems of this country will not be solved by statistical acrobatics. And I mean it. You know, every now and then, we change the number of goods that go into the basket for calculating inflation. And then, inflation figures look good, we tickle ourselves, and we jubilate. That is statistical acrobatics. Every now and then, we rebase the economy. And then we have new figures to play with. And we dance around and so on. All of those new figures cannot hide the fact that the structure of the Ghanaian economy today cannot deliver what the people want. And that unless there's a fundamental restructuring of the Ghanaian economy, unless the president listens to himself and moves away from the Gongisberg economy to a new kind of economy based on the principle of self-reliance and so on, we ain't going nowhere. Today, How many of the resources of this country belong to the people of Ghana and are exploited for the benefit of the people of Ghana? How many of those resources? The gold resources we have in this country, do they belong to the people of Ghana? Are the gold resources exploited for the benefit of the people of Ghana? Check the timber. Check everything we have. The oil, the gas, everything. How many of these resources are owned by the people of Ghana and are exploited for the benefit of the people of Ghana? The national independence movement clearly had two objectives: self-rule, our ability to elect our own leaders and so on, and the second objective was the need to own and control our own resources. We need to return to these basics. Because if we fail to return to these basics, we are in deep, deep trouble. Listen, again, yesterday, I had a conversation with some friends of mine, and they were full of praise for Jata Cement. They're saying that yes, Jata Cement is coming on the market and so on, and that the government of Ghana needs to introduce measures to discriminate in favor of local producers of the things that we need. So now you know something. We've already tied the noose around our heads, and we are incapable of discriminating in favor of local industry. Because we've gone ahead and signed the economic partnership agreement with the European Union, which prevents us from discriminating in favor of local industry. That's how smart our leaders are. That's how smart our leaders have been. They went and signed an economic partnership agreement with the European Union, which disables them for discriminating in favor of local industry. Today, everybody is calling for discrimination in favor of our local industry, which makes a lot of sense. It makes huge sense. And yet we committed ourselves to an economic partnership agreement with the European Union. And you know, I cannot understand why the current leadership of this country is not calling for a review of that agreement. Because Britain used to be our major trading partner for whatever reason. For whatever reason, we in Ghana decided and have worked in such a way that the colonial authority in Ghana has become our leading trading partners. For whatever reason, I don't know. It beats me. But listen, Britain, which was our major trading partner, has opted out of the European Union, has broken out of the European Union. So the motivations for signing the economic partnership agreement with the European Union itself has become problematic. And yet we've tied ourselves into this economic partnership agreement with the European Union. It doesn't make sense. It is not in the national interest, and a review or outright cancellation is the way to go if we are to be able to meet the demands of the young people who are gathering in the storm of the Fix the Country movement. That is our challenge. That is the challenge of our leaders. The people who are gathering in that storm of Fix the Country movement and so on. Why? They may not have spoken about the US military base that is being built in Ghana. They may not have directly spoken about it. But they are talking about our national sovereignty and the need to protect our national sovereignty. So by extension, they are worried about the fact that the whole terminal at our international airport, Accra International Airport, has been dedicated to the military operations of the United States of America. They are worried that military exercises being conducted in West Africa has Ghana as a logistic base. It has consequences for our economy. It has consequences for our security. It has dire consequences that we need to look at. I've seen it in many countries. We all saw it in Egypt. We all saw it in Sudan. We all saw it in Libya. And we are seeing it everywhere. And all of us know the consequences of these movements. All of us know what is happening to Libya today. All of us know what is happening in Sudan, what happened in Egypt. All of us know what is happening all over the world. And we've all heard of this saying that a word to the wise can sometimes be enough. Let's begin to act now in order to save our country, in order to prevent what has happened elsewhere happening here. Because what has happened in all the other places are not pleasant. And they happen because their leaders behave the same way Ghanaian leaders are behaving today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. And the conversation has been about the responses from government to the hashtag Face the Country demonstration. And let me just do a few of your messages. This one says, Senator, I like the statement from Dr. Percy. The murders committed by the uniformed persons on the 7th and 8th December 2020 is the doing of the president. There is no statute of limitation on murder charge. So remind the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces that we will be looking for him all over the world after his diplomatic immunity expires. SAC Nelson, Sendat of the Royal Air Force. Thank you for that message. There's other messages. This one is, look, everything in our market in this country, more than 100%. Our wages and salaries in this country. I just bought one single tomato for 1 cedi. You can imagine what we're going through in this country. So I had the call for biometrics to fix the country. That's from Mike Simon. Thank you for the message. I'm reading from our WhatsApp. This is free advice to my northern brothers and their own just for the position of the vice president rather than being a president. The current vice was used to destroy the former president JDM just for the position of becoming the vice president. Now nature is dealing with him for the damage he caused to humanity, because the favor he would have enjoyed campaigning on former president John Mahama's achievement as a future presidential candidate and Nodna is destroyed by himself. And he can't campaign on the achievement of his boss's performance, and former President Kufuor's achievements can no more save any person in this administration as far as 2024 is concerned. Remember, the 99 questions that was asked by now Vice President have still not been answered, and waiting for him to answer them. This should be a lesson to all our northern brothers whose interest is to destroy their own. Someone says this one from Awal Strongman. Says his hope for OT. It says the attempt to take the culture of silence to Menchia. Watch video of how journalism has become a crime in Ghana today under the dictatorship of President Kufuor. Hashtag fix the country. Thank you. Let me just use that message. Staring right at me is the headline from the Daily Analyst of Monday, Wednesday actually, May 2. And a CTFM reporter arrested Rambo Star for filming filming at the National Security. So that's the headline of the Daily Analyst. And that will form the basis for our discussion on dress to free expression. And to have to be very brief because I have at 11:37 now. And I have less than 30 minutes, about 23 minutes to go. And this time around, I'll start on my immediate left. Doc.
Well, you see, so now, what has really happened is that over the past 4 years, going to the 5th year, our president has used the cover of national security to take in the MPP party militia. We know the principal element of that militia in the so-called Delta Force, Bulgar Bulldogs, all those contingents. Who are now on the, and it's being supported through public funds. And they're operating as national security. It's a coverall. And their principal loyalty is the person of the president and their party. And that is how they view their work. Some of those elements were deployed in Ayaso West Wogon in that small test run for voter suppression, intended for the December 2020 election. Of course, things took a different turn. But by and large, what we have today, that is called national security, is essentially the MPP party militia, now provided with state cover and paid with our taxes. That's one leg of it. Now, all our president wanted really, he told us, it was very simple. He wanted us to give him control of the public purse. That was simple. He needed it for his first term. He hadn't finished his business. He had to have a second term. And everything was done to get a second term. It was in fact stolen. And the preparations for stealing it were carried out publicly. I don't need to go over them. But you need a culture of silence for the agenda to succeed. People have taken charge of the public purse for the business of paying off past debt from past campaigns and for storing more treasure for now and the future. So the wholesale looting of the public purse is the order of the day, under whatever pretext, whether it is the renegotiation of power purchase agreements or whatever. The name of the game is to create avenues and possibilities for looting the public purse. And for that to happen, you need power, and you need also people to keep quiet when it's necessary. So, instilling a climate of fear that will steer journalists and the media and even citizens from commenting on certain matters or adjusting their commentary is an absolute key part of this business. And this journey, starting from 4 years, more than 4 years ago, and continuing, has involved key elements of the media. I mean, key elements of the media, both public and private, have been important in constructing this climate of fear that, at its lowest, involves self-censorship. So media people engage, and not just media people, public commentators engage in self-censorship. So there are things that you will not talk about. There are distractions that you would follow and amplify. It's also part of the business of steering away people from critical commentary on the conduct of our government. In this recent instance, we are talking about the roughing up, the arrest, the brutalization of journalists of City News, right? But even that station has been part of the business of constructing this climate of fear. The media, multimedia, Desperate Group, practically all the account stations, private I'm talking about, public media, leading journalists, including the former head of the Media Foundation for West Africa, Professor Kakari, Kweku Baku, even the general manager of CTF or City News. I saw his outburst about their struggle for democracy, which they were not going to allow to be jeopardized by goons like Colonel, you mentioned a certain Colonel's name. Yeah. Was most eloquent. But all of them have been part of constructing this atmosphere of fear. There were generals in the media campaign that brought our commander-in-chief to become president. Were they not? They've been complicit in creating this toxic climate. It's bad enough that a journalist of theirs or journalists of theirs were brutalized. Maybe it is not too late for them to wake up to the reality that they themselves have been part of creating. But in all of this, the centerpiece really is the public execution of Ahmed Swale. Now, is it not curious, Sana, that 2 years on, there's no campaign led by the media for justice in this matter? I'm accusing them of a grave crime, of complicity in erecting a climate of fear and instilling a culture of silence. I'm saying that our media have been complicit in the creation of that climate. And a major testimony of that, major testament to that, is the fact that 2 years on, in a situation where there are witnesses, there's been no public interest in getting to the bottom of the murder of Ahmed Swale. It's public execution. Media people are not calling for it. Not the GJA. not the Media Foundation for West Africa, not all the various NGOs parading as apostles of what is it? Freedom of expression or whatever. At every turn, in fact, what they are being is that they are being complicit in the creation of that very climate.
Unfortunately, my time will not allow me. But thank you. Thank you very much. Phyllis.
You know, I made a point in my earlier submission that elections have consequences. So to be honest with you, sometimes I get surprised that people express surprise about what you are seeing. The reality is that long before President Akufo-Addo became president, he had demonstrated some character traits that ordinarily should have raised red flags about his viability and suitability for public office. Indeed, some of us, for the better part of a decade or so, have been consistently cautioning against his election. It is Alhaji ABF Hussein, who is the other Alhaji after whom this program is named, who has said a number of times on this your program that if a man plucks feathers from a tortoise, what do you expect him to do when he chances upon a fowl? When President Akufo-Addo was then candidate Akufo-Addo in the MPP, he showed extreme intolerance for dissent and internal criticism. Indeed, his response was that he mobilized this same ragtag team of bandits to unleash terror on his internal critics. Indeed, if you give me the opportunity, I can cite for you at least 12 instances where the MPP headquarters became the staging post of bloody clashes and confrontations. Indeed, we recall that at least 2 lives were lost in that melee, including their then Upper East Regional Chairman and another party supporter at Asawasi. People who dared demand accountability or questioned his leadership style of the MPP, even in opposition, were subjected to terrorism by all those groups with those blood-curdling names: Delta Forces, Invincible Forces, Volta Crocodiles, Borga Bulldogs, and what have you. The man superintended that within his MPP, and these were internal critics, members of his own party, when he was just an opposition leader. People glossed over this. They overlooked it, despite the obvious signals that the man was not going to tolerate any form of dissent, to the extent that it exposes any form of wrongdoing on his part. So when he becomes commander-in-chief and we vest state power and authority in him, exactly what kind of reception do you expect to receive from him when you criticize him as a journalist or even as a regular member of society? He has ensured that violence and retribution against critics is made a central pillar, a key plank of his administration, to ensure that he has effectively established a militia, a militant group populated by violent acts of his party. This was on full display at Ayoa's West Wagon. We all saw it. How they brutalized innocent members of society. How they assaulted a member of parliament. On the evidence of that alone, it was possible, if the president was sincere and meant well, to hold to account those who engaged in that brutality. He set up a commission of inquiry. I am on record to have said that nothing was going to come out of that inquiry. Indeed, as I speak to you, nothing came out of it. Despite clear recommendations calling for the prosecution of named individuals and some actions to be taken against them. One of the actions was the disbandment of this SWAT team. You see, now, it is becoming increasingly clear that we also, as citizens, don't take ourselves seriously. You see, when you talk of SWAT, the full meaning is Special Weapons and Training. They are supposed to be an elite team, capable, willing, and able to respond to pressing security challenges. That's why when you go elsewhere, it is their best and brightest who populate the SWAT team. Those with the highest levels of training and motivation, who have demonstrated aptitude and brilliance, they are the ones they recruit into their SWAT teams. But here, what do we have? Bandits, brigands and buccaneers, thugs, terrorists of the new Patriotic Party are the ones they recruited into that team. So their loyalty is to President Akufo-Addo and not the state. So to the extent that you offer any form of dissent or criticism or opposition to President Akufo-Addo, you become their enemy. And therefore, in dealing with you, they employ the most vicious and violent tactics. This was on display. And we had opportunity as citizens to show disapproval for this in the election that was held. Yet, the man was supposed to have gotten a pass. He was supposed to have won. So when he wins, do you expect that he will do anything to change the status quo? When he had displayed such tendencies. And make no mistake, the direct responsibility for this lies at the doorstep of President Akufo-Addo. Finished. If he didn't want it, it won't exist. It's as simple as that. If President Akufo-Addo was not interested in these violent acts, they will simply not happen. Or at the very least, when the first ones happened, he would take such firm action as to deter anybody from engaging in similar acts. Why? Whilst we were talking about this Caleb Kuda molestation, there were news reports that the Delta forces had gone to the Ashanti Regional Security Secretariat to forcibly remove the current Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, this retired Ayenso Parado, who himself came to symbolize the oppression and suppression of people exercising dissent. Because I recall his banters, his random battles with the CJE when we were confronting the Kufuor administration. He was then in charge of the Greater Accra region as police commander. He fell victim to the terrorism of these MPP attacks only a day or two ago. That has been muted because of the overwhelming public interest in the Caleb Kuda case. So this government, rather than becoming the one responsible for ensuring and guaranteeing our safety, you see, the responsibility of every government, the first responsibility of any government, is to ensure public safety. In fact, if you can't do anything at all as a government, that alone you should be able to do. So it is President Akufo-Addo's responsibility to ensure public safety. Indeed, if you check their manifesto, they promise to do so. But rather than becoming the guarantor of our safety, President Akufo-Addo has ensured that they become the foremost threat to the safety and security of the people of Ghana, insofar as it enables them to entrench themselves in power.
Okay.
So, Senator, before I land, Caleb Kuda goes supposedly to take pictures. To begin with, there's no crime that warrants torturing anybody. Even those who commit genocide and atrocities must be taken through due process. So taking a picture is by no means a crime in itself, let alone to warrant the sort of treatment meted out to you. And then to make matters worse, they storm a TV and radio station in Rambo fashion to arrest an innocuous female journalist who is supposed to have received the material that Caleb Kuda filmed. And there are people in this country who want to put up defenses for such dastardly action. Suddenly, we have lost our mind as a country. So we do not know how to even take steps to look into potential breaches of the law. Why? Assuming without admitting that Caleb had breached any law, if you did not want him to send out the image that he took, what is wrong with ensuring that that is done in a civil manner? Why does he have to be accosted and beaten?
Well, thank you.
So, President Akufo-Addo must bear responsibility. And we, the people of Ghana, if we want an end to it, must take firm action.
Okay.
It is obvious that he is not going to listen to the exhortations and appeals.
Okay. David Sena says, Dr. Percy forgot to mention the use of vigilantes by the government to steal the second mandate. Ghanaians will never forget
Sena, it looks like our time is fast spent. I just want to touch on something. And you know, this issue of vigilantes and national security operatives, so-called national security operatives, doing certain odd jobs or being so unprofessional. I remember the very first case that went very wild was the Ayawasi West Wagon case. There were a lot of witnesses that spoke to the fact that these people were very unprofessional. They didn't look like they were any professional security team. And in fact, after investigations, we realized that they were just vigilantes clothed in those national security uniforms. Now, Summons, the City TV CEO, or should I say MD, mentioned in his interview on one of their programs about this Caleb issue that these people came in very unprofessional. They didn't look like security people. They looked like thugs. They couldn't even express themselves properly in English. And they came and clocking their guns and just a description of how everything looked like. You see, sometimes when issues happen and we complain, so that people think that we are on the political side, and so we just want to attack the government. But look, after all is said and done, we are all citizens. And of course, I won't come and sit here and just complain about the government all in the name of trying to paint them black when there is nothing that they have done wrong. Of course, there will be something that they have done wrong. You listen to the case of Caleb, and then they tell you how he was hit in the groins, slapped, beaten, asked to press up, you know, tortured, put in the room with foreigners that were being investigated, intimidated to a very large extent. Because of what? Because he had gone to see white Chevrolet cars that had been parked over there for over 2 years, and he was wondering why they were made to go waste. And so he just wanted an update because he had heard from a source that these cars were still there. He just wanted accountability. And this is what a young boy went in for, and this is what it has resulted in. Now, let's not forget Ahmed Twali, how he died, recent Captain Smart, and Manasseh being threatened after his expose about the vigilantes being trained in government facilities, and so many. And I wonder how they are feeling now. You know, sometimes you listen to a few things that happen these days, and as an NDC person, I sit back and I say, Simohum, that is all like I feel like saying. You see what it has ended us? That we decide to so much go into one direction, put all our eggs in one basket, and now even journalists can't even talk. Yesterday, a few days ago, when I watched the interview, there was something Caleb said, and I just want to mention that he said that when he was being beaten, someone asked him, "Na we call Edeni," and then he said, another person said, "Oh, Obeyagbeni," and then he said, "No, Mifiki," because he had to lie. Now, I don't even want to rely on the tribal aspect of that. That is for another time. All I want to say is that if this guy, as a journalist, had to lie about where he's coming from to reduce the beatings, probably, very soon, journalists will be held up somewhere and they'll have to lie about not being journalists to be able to save their lives. So you'll be caught doing your job, and because you think you are in deep shit at that moment, they ask you, are you a journalist? And you'd have to lie. You would probably have to swear that you are not a journalist to be able to escape. The gross intolerance of this government is something that is so spiteful. And I think that if we've been rid of everything as a country or as citizens, the last thing that we need to be taken away from us is our voice. And you go deep down, and Senna, you realize that our own journalists and our own media houses are at fault in some way. And if they've started realizing this and they've started screaming, I hope they make things right. Because in several instances, we go deep down and we realize that they mishandled their rights or their responsibilities. They did things the way they wanted and gave too much power, too much autonomy to this particular government. And now they're hitting you right back in your face and you have nowhere to go. You have no one to complain to. I'll just say that we can only rebuke it. And just about yesterday, the president of the Ghana Journalism Association, came out and apologized to Caleb for some comments that he made out of just because he was being professional. And of course, our people out there try to hammer so much on it to divert attention and to make it look like he was rebuking Caleb's actions as a journalist, which wasn't the case. I am so sympathetic about this whole thing, and it just adds up to the many mistakes that we made as a country or as citizens. And I hope that going forward we'll be able to put things right, and we'll do the needful by eliminating this canker that is eating us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jifa. Jifa was just referring to what the GJH okay. There's supposed to be an investigation by National Security, and Goel Olonya is speaking to that on Facebook. It says every investigation under Serpent Ado Dumso is a sham. Who do you? The price of maize is skyrocketing in the country, and yet without our achievements in planting for food and jobs, in Yeji a bag of maize goes for 350 cedis. This cannot be a reduction in food prices. And Selom Agbeno Heavy says 5 years in power and still blaming Mahama. Ekufuado and his corrupt MPP government are not innovative enough and interested in factories and other social infrastructure for the betterment of Ghana. Is it in a boondoggle? Mr. Pratt.
Well, there are three things that I'd like to talk about. And first is the claim that he was not on an official assignment. I think that's the most bogus claim that anybody can make. Journalists cover stories, not only when they're on official assignment. I'm walking through town. I'm sleeping in my house. If there's a matter of interest, I don't need official assignment to be able to cover it. So that's a bogus claim, and I don't think that it should be repeated anywhere. It's a claim which simply has no merit. The other thing which is important for me is that all suspects, even criminal suspects, even persons who are suspected of having committed murder and arson, are not to be beaten on arrest. There can be no justification for the beating of this young man. Absolutely no justification at all. And the evidence we have now is that he was actually molested. He was put in handcuffs, he was slapped, he was kicked around, and so on. It's not justifiable under any circumstance. Now, I think that all of this, even if we agree that there were infractions of the law, even if we agree that there were infractions of the law, could have been handled quite nicely. A call could have gone to the managers of City Television and City FM and so on, for them to surrender their reporters for investigation, for interrogation, for prosecution, and could have been handled so nicely. It seems to me that it was handled in the manner in which it was handled to send a message. And that is a message of intimidation. And we should all frown upon that. I mean, all of us should clearly frown upon that. Then again, there are the ethical considerations which have been raised. And we are told that, and of course it is true, that the Code of Ethics of the Ghana Journalists Association frowns upon the use of subterfuge to obtain information. That is true. But I cannot forget that in this very country, Kofi Kumsin, who was then the editorial boss of the Ghanaian Chronicle, actually went into the Kolebu Teaching Hospital to interview Vida Euphoria, I suppose, you know, by claiming that he was a security officer from the castle. And we applauded him. Now, why did we applaud him? That was clearly the use of subterfuge. But he was applauded because it was believed that he was acting in the national interest. So that clause in the Code of Ethics of the Ghana Journalists Association needs to be read in context, in proper context. Otherwise, we are likely to get many things wrong. In any case, all of this has revealed something which is very interesting. Azugu is still at national security. And Azugu is still a national security operative in spite of what the Emil Short Commission recommended. It shows the contempt with which government and national security officials have treated the whole of the Emil Short Commission report. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. I was going to say a few of the things you said, but just prove that you're a legend in the job we have chosen for ourselves. Let me just say something. In fact, this is a miracle. Somebody was asking me exactly this question earlier in the week. There's a copy of a book that has been compiled by Socialist Forum of Ghana. That's interesting a lot of people. I've had a lot of requests about how they can get a copy. It's called Fight Back, a response to anti-Nkrumah provocations. Fight Back, a response to anti-Nkrumah provocations. If you need a copy of this book, a lot of you have already heard about it. If you want a copy of it, you can call the number 0240 748 782. 0240 748 782. You can get a copy, or you can come to Pan-African Television here at Abelengbe, and you can get a copy of it. Mr. Bar, can you get a copy at Freedom Bookshop?
Bookshop.
Yes. So Freedom Bookshop.
Not Freedom Center, Freedom Bookshop.
Freedom Bookshop.
Near Apollo Theater.
Yeah, Freedom Bookshop near Apollo Theater. You can get a copy there too. So the number again, 0240 748 782. This is the book, and this is how it looks. It's a book that's interesting a lot of people, and I want one. I don't know if I can keep the copy they have given to me. So a big thank you for joining us today on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. My name is Senna Nomwen. I was joined by Mr. Kwesi Prajina, who is managing editor of the Insight newspaper, and of course a big part of this show. Jifar Tega is a member of the communications team of the National Democratic Congress. Felix Kwachof was always wonderful having him. He was one of the people who trended this week. I guess if you didn't know, he celebrated his birthday somewhere this week. So happy belated birthday to Felix, who is a former Deputy Minister of Communications, and always a delight having Dr. David Percy, who is a student of history and politics. One of the other people who celebrated their birthday this week is Honorable Mahama Yariga. I saw him trending, and I also saw one of my producers here, Latifa Adams, who and alongside Ruben have been doing the work of my traveling producer Tijani this morning. So happy belated birthday to her. And Hassan Libby, a happy belated today or belated?
2 days ago or 3 days.
Okay, so happy belated birthday to him too. And of course, maybe a bit late, but Eid Mubarak to our Muslim brothers and sisters, especially the panel people who appear on this show as panel. May your fast find favor in the face of Allah. We are back same time next week with another edition of the show. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Have a fruitful week. Enjoy me here on Pan African Television. Big thank you to Ahunto FM, Volta One TV, Global FM, among the several affiliates that offered us their platform this morning. A big thank you to you for your views and for your time.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty.